The Fintokei prop firm is a very exciting player in the marketplace, largely because they're very well run. As part of the Purple Trading Group, they have a true brokerage background with people who understand how to manage risk, to manage liquidity, to manage payouts. And because of that, it's quite an exciting firm to take a look at. However, we should really dive in because their challenges are not quite as cookie cutter as what you see in the industry. In many ways, some of their baseline conditions are not as good as what you'd see with some other firms. But ultimately, I think partially because they understand risk management, they understand how to deal with payouts, they've made a lot of their conditions stricter so that they can be long-term sustainable. Therefore, today, I wanted to dive into a few different programs they offer, share some experiences from some people in my community on how they actually differ from some other prop firms and considerations you should have when buying challenges. This video is sponsored by Prosperity Algo and our free Golden Time Bomb Expert Advisor. Do you want to make 100+% annual returns through automating the London breakout and the opening range breakout? Then click the link in the description. So Fintokei has three different types of challenges here. We have the Start Trader, the Swift Trader, and the Pro Trader. And the Start Trader is a three-phase. The Swift Trader is an instant funding with a 10% first profit target. And the Pro Trader is more akin to your standard two-phase. And I actually opened up some purchase tabs here because that gives us a nice detailed overview. So if we click on Start Trader and the $5,000 one, we can see all of the rules. So clearly with the Start Trader program, which is what I will focus on primarily today, as I think it's the best deal, and one of my clients has actually passed this challenge using our prop firm bundle. This one has a three-phase approach, and it has a 2% phase one, a 3% target in phase 2, and a 6% in phase 3. So that gives us a total of an 11% profit target with a max overall drawdown of 6% and a daily starting drawdown of 3%. So each phase has a 3% drawdown. And this is quite an interesting approach. And one other thing that they do here, which he has told me, is every time you hit 1% in your account, they close you. So you hit 1% and then they close all your positions for the day. And this is on a daily basis, and you just keep that 1%. So it's a bit of a unique approach, and I think they've designed this specifically for people who want to be more beginner traders. That's their target demographic, so that your risk is fairly capped, but at the same time, it's meant to kind of build consistency. The biggest downside here is on your first payout, you only get a 50% profit payout, so you can get a 50% profit split, and that kind of works up to 100% the more payouts you get. So there are quite a few restrictions here, but kind of back to my earlier point, they're really making this in such a way that they're hoping to be sustainable. So I think it's really a firm that if you actually manage to pass, they're likely to pay you. However, it is fairly strenuous. And this one, I believe, is the best of all the challenges which they offer. You have to hit 11%. You can only make 1% per day. But if you actually get to the account, you're rather likely to get paid. The drawdown here is also static. They allow MetaTrader 5 and they allow expert advisors. And from what I've heard, their trading conditions are actually very good. So all of that is actually quite solid. But the one caveat here is that it is a bit more arduous to pass this than your classic, maybe one phase, which you can get for just a little bit more money or a comparable price if you don't get the 50% discount. The other two programs here are going to be the Pro Trader, and this one is more similar to the two-phase where you have to hit this would be a 14% profit target with a daily drawdown of 5% and overall drawdown of 10%. And this looks like a fairly solid challenge too, with some pretty good conditions as well. So I wouldn't write this one off as well, but you still need to hit a pretty sizable profit target, and there's quite a few competitors in this range. And the final one here would be their instant funding. I'm personally never a huge fan of instant funding, just because the trading conditions are significantly more challenging usually, with significantly greater limits on drawdowns, and you still need to actually take and make a 5% or a 10% profit target even to get your first payout. So you have to hit 10% to get paid at the beginning. And if you have to actually risk this much money for a challenge and you still have to hit 10% in order to get paid, in many ways you're actually better off just doing a one phase, or in this case the Start Trader program, just because of the fact that it's way cheaper. So your upfront capital at risk before you get a return of capital is quite a bit lower. So that's really the main takeaways here. So now moving on to the actual some of the rules. For the Pro Trader and for the Star Trader program, they have static drawdowns in terms of the overall drawdown, which I think is one of the most important things that you have to look out for. At the same time, for Star Trader accounts, they have a 3% daily drawdown. And another note is that, as mentioned, in these accounts, once you make 1% daily, my understanding from my client is that they will actually freeze all your trades and they will close everything, you get your profit, and you're done for the day. So it's really made to encourage consistency. For the Star Trader program as well, they also do have consistency rules. So the maximum 40% of your profit can come from any particular day. And this is done essentially to encourage you to spread your trades out across several days and not take too much risk on any given one. At the same time, 40% is not bad for a consistency rule. I don't think that people really hate consistency rules. As long as they're reasonable and you're trading in an intelligent manner, it shouldn't be a particularly huge risk factor. Once you start seeing some prop firms like Aquafunded or Blue Guardian do a 15% consistency rule, that's ridiculous, right? Because then they're essentially saying you need to trade across many, many different days because no individual day or no individual trade can exceed 15%. That starts to get very, very punitive, but 40% should not be that big of a deal. So my takeaway here is that their two-phase is relatively market competitive. Instant funding is probably not a great deal because it's still rather expensive and you need to make 10% just to get your first payout. So like your risk versus the amount of capital that you outlay is rather challenging. But the Star Trader program can actually be quite good if you manage to get it on sale. That's simply because you have like reasonably good conditions. You can get some $5,000 accounts for a good price. Like this one's $22, which is very modestly priced if you're looking for maybe more on the smaller account side of things. And you can scale up to a higher like payout split. Ultimately, these guys are a very good prop firm that pays out and has very good trading conditions, and that's essentially their biggest pro. Cons are the conditions are definitely a lot more strenuous than some other ones, but the pros are that they actually do have very good trading conditions. And kind of the secret sauce, and maybe something I can share with you guys, is we have clients who have passed this using EAs, so it seemingly does work reasonably well for EAs, and looking forward to seeing some of the first payouts from these guys too. But overall, I've heard good things about them, but their conditions are a little bit stricter. So guys, hope you enjoyed this review. I think these are definitely a valid prop firm to look at. I would personally buy a $5,000 Star Trader account. It wouldn't be the fastest to pass, but I think from the risk, the cost versus what you get, it seems to be a fairly good deal. The other ones are a bit more challenging. Hope you enjoyed the review. Take care. Have a great day.